often rebuked, yet always back returning to those first feelings that were born with me, and leaving busy chase of wealth and learning for idle dreams of things which cannot be. Today I will seek not the shadowy region, its unsustaining vastness waxes drear, and visions rising legion after legion bring the unreal world too strangely near. I'll walk, but not in old heroic traces and not in paths of high morality, and not among the half-distinguished faces, the clouded forms of long past history. I'll walk where my own nature would be leading. It vexes me to choose another guide, where the gray flocks in ferny glens are feeding, where the wild wind blows on the mountainside. What have those lonely mountains worth revealing? More glory and more grief than I can tell. The earth that wakes one human heart to feeling can center both the worlds of heaven and hell.
Les Maudits by Richard Aldington. Women's tears are but water. The tears of men are blood. He sits alone in the firelight, and on either side drifts by sleep like a torrent whirling, profound, wrinkled and dumb. Circuitously, stealthily, dawn occupies the city as if the seasons knew of his grief. Spring has suddenly changed to snow. Disaster and sorrow have made him their pet. He cannot escape their accursed embraces. For all his dodgings, memory will lacerate him. What good does it do to wander night's hours through city streets? Only that in poor places he can be with common men and receive their unspoken, instinctive sympathy. What has life done for him? He stands alone in the darkness like a sentry never relieved, looking over a barren space, awaiting the tardy finish.
To wake when all is possible, before the agitations of the day have gripped you. To come to the kitchen and peel a little basketball for breakfast. To tear the husk like cotton padding, a cloud of oil misting out of its pinprick pores, clean and sharp as pepper. To ease each pale pink section out of its case so carefully, without breaking a single pearly cell. To slide each piece into a cold blue china bowl, the juice pooling until the whole fruit is divided from its skin, and only then to eat. So sweet a discipline, precisely pointless. A devout involvement of the hands and senses. A pause. A little emptiness. Each year harder to live within. Each year harder to live without.
We are chameleons, we become chameleon. Jose Antonio Borsiaga. We are space between the black-orange blur of a million monarchs on their two-generation migration south to fur-crowned Michoacan, where tree trunks will sprout feathers, a forest of paper-thin wings. Our Mexica cocooned in the membranes de la Madre Tierra say we are reborn Zacuanpapalotls, mariposas negras y anaranjadas in whose sweep the dead whisper. We are between the flicker of a chameleon's tail that turns his desert blue backbone to jade or pink sand. The snake-skinned fraternal twins of solstice and equinox. The ashen dawn, silvering dusk, la oración as it leaves the lips, the tug from sleep, the glide into dreams that husk out mestizo memory. We are one life passing through the prism of all others, gathering color and song, cempasúchil and drum, to leave a rhythm scattered on the wind, dust tinting the tips of fingers as we slip into our new light.
Just when it seemed I couldn't bear one more friend waking with a tumor, one more maniac with a perfect reason, often a sweetness has come and changed nothing in the world except the way I stumbled through it, for a while lost in the ignorance of loving someone or something. The world shrunk to mouth size, hand size, and never seeming small. I acknowledge there is no sweetness that doesn't leave a stain, no sweetness that's ever sufficiently sweet. Tonight, a friend called to say his lover was killed in a car he was driving. His voice was low and guttural. He repeated what he needed to repeat, and I repeated the one or two words we have for such grief until we were speaking only in tones. Often, a sweetness comes as if on loan, stays just long enough to make sense of what it means to be alive, then returns to its dark source. As for me, I don't care where it's been or what bitter road it's traveled to come so far, to taste so good.
I buried my father in the sky. Since then, the birds clean and comb him every morning and pull a blanket up to his chin every night. I buried my father underground, and since then, my ladders only climb down, and all the earth has become a house whose rooms are for the hours, whose doors stand open at evenings, receiving guest after guest. Sometimes I see past them to the table spread for the wedding feast. I buried my father in my heart. Now he grows in me, my strange son, my little roots who won't drink milk, little pale foot sunk in unheard of night, little clock, spring newly wet by the fire, little grape, a parent to the future wine, a son, the fruit of his own son. Little father, I ransom with my life.
After DHL. Your first thought when the light snaps on and the black wings clatter about the kitchen is a bat. The clear part of your mind considers rabies. The other part does not consider, knows only to startle and cower away from the slap of its wings. Though it is soon, clearly not a bat, but a moth, and harmless. Still, you are shy of it. It clings to the hood of the stove, not black, but brown. Its orange eyes sparkle, like televisions. Its leg joints are large enough to count. How could you kill it? Where would you hide the body? A creature so solid, must have room for a soul. And if this is so, why not in a creature half its size? Or half its size again? And so on, down to the ants. Clearly, it must be saved. Caught in a shopping bag and rushed to the front door, afraid to crush it, feeling the plastic rattle. Loosened into the night air, it batters the porch light, throwing fitful shadows around the landing. That was a really big moth, is all you can say to the doorman who's watched your whole performance with a smile. The half compassion and half horror we feel for the creatures we want not to hurt and prefer not to touch.
5 p.m. on the nose. They open their mouths and it rolls out. High, shrill, and metallic. First the boy, then his sister. Occasionally they both let loose at once, and I think of putting on my shoes to go up and see whether it is merely an experiment their parents have been conducting upon the good crystal, which must surely lie shattered to dust on the floor. Maybe the mother is still proud of the 4 pink lungs she nursed to such might. Perhaps if they hit the magic decibel, the whole building will lift off and will ride to glory like Elijah. If this is it, if this is what their cries are cocked toward, let the sky pass from blue to red to molten gold to black. Let the heaven we inherit approach, whether it is our dead and Old Testament robes, or a door opening onto the roiling infinity of space, whether it will bend down and greet us like a father, or swallow us like a furnace. I'm ready to meet what refuses to let us keep anything for long. What teases us with blessings, bends us with grief, wizard, thief, the great wind rushing to knock our mirrors to the floor to sweep our short lives clean. How mean our racket seems beside it. My stereo on shuffle, the neighbor chopping onions through a wall, all of it just a hiccup against what may never come for us. And the kids upstairs, still at it, screaming like the dawn of man, as if something they have no name for has begun to insist upon being born.
Pues estoy creando Spanglish bicultural systems. Scientific lexicographical intertextual integrations. 2 expressions existentially wired. 2 dominant languages, continentally abrazándose en colloquial combate. En las aceras del soil, Imperio Spanglish emerges, control pan viaje sobre territorio bilingual. Las novelas mexicanas mixing with radio rock and roll condimented cocina lore. Immigrant, migrant, nasal mispronouncements? Braja Chismeteo Social Club, Hip Hop Prieto Street Salsa Corner Soul, and Mixturando Spanish Pop Farandula. Standard English classroom with computer technicalities. Spanglish is literally perfect. Spanglish is ethnically snobbish. Spanglish is cara, holy inteligencia. Which U.S. slang do you speak?
In the middle of rolling grasslands, away from lights, a moonless night untethers its wild polka dots. The formations we can name, competing for attention in a twinkling and crowded sky bowl. Out from the corners, our eyes detect a maverick meteor, a transient streak, and lying back toward midnight on the heft of car hood
all conversation blunted. We are at once unnerved and somehow restored. Out here, a furrow of spring-fed river threads through ranches in the tens of thousands of acres. Like cattle, we are powerless. By instinct, can see why early people trembled and deliberated the heavens. Off in the distance, those cattle make themselves known. A bird song moves singular across the horizon, not yet two, and bits of comet dust, the Perseids, startle and skim the atmosphere like skipping stones. In the leaden dark, we are utterly alone. As I rub the ridges on the back of your hand, our love for all things warm and pulsing crescendos toward dawn. This timeless awe, your breath floating with mine upward into the stars.
When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, "Weep, weep, weep, weep." So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's little Tom Dacre, who cried when his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved. So I said, "Hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair." And so he was quiet. And that very night, as Tom was a-sleepin', he had such a sight that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river and shine in the sun. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God as his father and never want joy. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm.
Somebody said that it couldn't be done. But he, with a chuckle, replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say so till he tried. So he buckled right in with a trace of a grin on his face. If he worried, he hid it. He started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done. And he did it. Somebody scoffed. "Oh, you'll never do that. At least, no one ever has done it." But he took off his coat, and he took off his hat. And the first thing we knew, he'd begun it. With a lift of his chin and a bit of a grin, without any doubting or quit it, he started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done. And he did it. There are thousands to tell you it cannot be done. There are thousands to prophesy failure. There are thousands to point out to you, one by one, the dangers that wait to assail you. But just buckle in with a bit of a grin. Just take off your coat and go to it. Just start in to sing as you tackle the thing that cannot be done. And you'll do it.
I shot an arrow into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where, for so swiftly it flew, the sight could not follow it in its flight. I breathed a song into the air. It fell to earth, I knew not where, for who has sight so keen and strong that can follow the flight of song? Long, long afterward, in an oak, I found the arrow still unbroke. In the song from beginning to end, I found again in the heart of a friend.
The days are dog-eared, the edges torn ragged. Like those pages I ripped once out of library books for their photos of Vallejo and bootless Robert Johnson. A fine needs paying now, it's true, but not by me. I am no more guilty than that thrush is, who sits there stripping moss off the wet bark of a tree. A red fleck like his glows at the back of my head, a beauty mark left by the brain's afterjets. I would not wish for the 3 brains Robert required to double-clutch his guitar and chase those sounds he had to know led down and into a troubled, dusky river always. 3 brains did Johnson no earthly good, neither his nor Vallejo's 4.5 worked right exactly. Oh, bunglers, oh, banged-up pans of disaster! Crying for days, said Cesar, and singing for months. How can I be so strong sometimes that others weak? I wish to be free, but free to do what? To leave myself behind? To switch channels remotely? Better to sing. Not like the bird, but as they sang, Cesar and Robert, with the shocked and seeded sweetness of an apple split open by a meat cleaver.
People pray to each other the way I say you to someone else. Respectfully. Intimately. Desperately. The way someone says you to me, hopefully, expectantly, intensely. Hub Oosterhuis. You, who I don't know how to talk to you. What is it like for you there? Here, well, wanting solitude and talk, friendship. The uses of solitude to imagine, to hear, learning Braille, to imagine other solitudes, but they will not be mine. To wait in the quiet, not to scatter the voices. What are you afraid of? What will happen? All this leaving and meetings, yes, but death. What happens when you die? Not scatter the voices. Drown out, not to make a house out of my own words, to be quiet in another throat, other eyes, to listen for what it is like there, what word, what silence, allowing uncertain to drift into restlessness, repose, to run like water. What is it like there right now? Listen. The crowding of the street, the room, everyone hunches in against the crowding, holding their breath, against dread. What do you dread? What happens when you die? What do you dread in this room now? Not listening. Now, not watching. Safe inside my own skin to die. Not having listened. Not having asked, to have scattered life. Yes, I know. The thread you have to keep finding over again to follow it back to life. I know. Impossible sometimes.
My heart is bleeding. It bleeds upward and fills my mouth up with salt. It bleeds because of a city in ruins, the chair still warm from sister's body, because it will all be irreproducible. My heart bleeds because of baby bear not finding mama bear, and it bleeds to the tips of my fingers like I painted my nails crimson. Sometimes my heart bleeds so much I am a raisin. It bleeds until I am a quivering, ragged clot. Bleeds at the ending with the heroine and her sunken cancer eyes. At the ending with the plaintive flute over smoke-choked killing fields. I'm bleeding a river of blood right now, and it's wearing a culvert in me for the blood. My heart rises up in me, becomes the cork of me, and I choke on it. I'm bleeding for you, and for me, and for the tiny babies, and the IED blown leg. It bleeds because I'm made that way, all filled up with blood. My sloppy heart a sponge filled with blood to squeeze onto any circumstance. Because it is mine, it will always bleed. My heart bled today. It bled onto the streets and the steps of City Hall. It bled in the pizza parlor with the useless jukebox. I've got so much blood to give inside and outside of any Maloo, even for a bad zoning decision. I'll bleed so much you'll be bleeding. All of us bleeding. In and out, like it's breathing or kissing. And because it is righteous and terrible and red.
Hog butcher for the world, toolmaker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads, and the nation's freight handler, stormy, husky, brawling, the city of the big shoulders. They tell me you are wicked, and I believe them. For I have seen your painted women under the gas lamps, luring the farm boys. And they tell me you are crooked. And I answered, yes. It is true, I've seen the gunman kill and go free to kill again. And they tell me you are brutal. And my reply is, on the faces of women and children, I have seen the marks of wanton hunger. And having answered so, I turn once more to those who sneer at this, my city. And I give them back the sneer, and I say to them, come and show me another city, with lifted head singing so proud to be alive and coarse and strong and cunning, flinging magnetic curses amid the toil of piling job on job. Here is a tall, bold slugger, set vivid against the little soft cities. Fierce as a dog, with tongue lapping for action, cunning as a savage pitted against the wilderness, bareheaded, shoveling, wrecking, planning, building, breaking, rebuilding, under the smoke, dust all over his mouth, laughing with white teeth, under the terrible burden of destiny, laughing as a young man laughs, laughing even as an ignorant fighter laughs, who has never lost a battle, bragging and laughing that under his wrist is the pulse, and under his ribs, the heart of the people laughing. Laughing, the stormy, husky, brawling laughter of youth, half naked, sweating, proud to be hog butcher, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads, and freight handler to the nation.
Poetry Out Loud is really important to me, and especially important to my school, because with me going to nationals, this is my school's 4th year in a row going to nationals, and I have a very close friend, Mariah Brooks. She was at the national level last year, and she kind of mentored me, and our school is just so supportive of Poetry Out Loud and of the people going through it. So winning this, especially after being at state last year and not even making it to finals, means so much to me. Go for it. There are so many people that could be wonderful at this that just that just aren't trying. Last year I made it to state, and it was my first year even making it past classroom. So just go for it and practice a lot and get support.